How did I get introduced to it? The lead designer contacted me and offered me to try it during launch day, 1.0 launch day. And here I am, 8 sessions later. But I was already aware of the game. I have a long history of deck building. Like a very long history of deck building. Frank. The lead designer, William, I noticed that I played Across the Obelisk, which is it belongs to the same genre, the same subgenre. Freaking sponsorship. Let's prevent the freaking sponsorship. The subtle endorsement, product placement. Is easily top 2 tracks. Have I always been a gamer? Yeah, more or less. The most interesting thing about gaming is originally it became a coping mechanism. Initially, as it was a coping mechanism when I was younger, because I was a high-functioning kid when I was young. Sure, I still am a high-functioning person, but now it's more of a source of learning. After like many years of different types of conditioning and whatnot, now video games are generally used as a form of enrichment and also a way to empathize with kids of today, because I'm specifically interested in the education of younger adults. However, this stuff I'm doing for personal posterity. Maybe using it as a form of legacy building to indirectly offer like education by example kind of thing. So largely I play video games on a manner of how to extract useful information from playing the hobby. The run has ended. We have got outscaled again. Feels bad, man. It's alright. We accept the poor scaling design of battle bands at the higher diffs. You have to mulligan. And I'm not gonna mulligan, I'll just take the XP. And listen to the song. Riff Rats, man. The beat, background music for Riff Rats. Okay. So, I play video games. I would identify myself as a educator. I spend most of the time educating. So I play video games for the use of educating, for the purpose of educating. Be it like design, psychology, business practices, learning, something like that. All right, let's go fetch. Maybe 3rd time's the charm again. Yeah, 2.1 is crossing it a lot. Now we're looking at below 20% chance on the mulligan at 2.1. That response. Or some old games that you were able to get educational information from? Uh, I guess when you're talking about educational information, you're talking about like semantics and static information. I'm presuming here. So, like uh, an example of semantics, right? And static information would be something like historical. So an old game would be like Age of Empires. There's I played Age of Empires before I entered high school, and Western Heritage is a high school emphasis, and it involves like historical, early, ancient Western times, and typically it involves things like William Wallace, Mesopotamia, uh, the Persian Empire, and Babylon, right? Things like that. You can probably literally get educational information from understanding the context and the semantics and the setting of war games. So you can go back really far. I mean, Age of Empires is still around now. That would be an old game, right? Old games. We think even further back. That's another game that has like information. There are a lot of pro educational games too, like typing games, Mavis. Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego? Yeah, some of the back in the days when PC in its infancy did have pro educational stuff. Now, in terms of psychology and learning practices, I would say any form of circuit building. So, in terms of games, it doesn't necessarily have to be digital or video games, because the root of conceptual digital games are tabletop games. So, board games, they will teach you how to understand, order of operations, optimization practices, like some critical thinking, not necessarily a lot of critical thinking, but optimization, lots of optimization and order of operation. So like things like the phrase turn matters, the order of the way you do the process matters, right? So early deck builders, for example, to be relevant to where a game like Battle Bands get eventually become 2023, a game in 2023, is deck building started at the tabletop. And there are some older, really well-established games, and when I mean older, like maybe the last 10 years, like Dominion on the tabletop. Dominion is a deck builder. A lot of things are built out of the foundation of those things. I mean, even as simple as like Monopoly, if one doesn't simply play intuitively, like there as a kid, if you don't intuit games and you intellectually integrate active participation, you generally can extract psychological benefits like process-oriented thinking, associate combinations, associate synergistic and antagonistic relationships between mechanics. And that's the large foundation of deck building, which is to the learning curve goes down as one understands fundamentals where certain mechanics bolster each other and certain mechanics take away from each other. And eventually it can be intuited. But generally speaking, to constantly learn from video games, you have to constantly take an active practice in participating in the activity itself. It's a little bit different from something like playing a mechanics game where you're trying to beat a boss by executing something, like bootstrapping the execution of something. That is a intuitive process that's mechanical. But in terms of education and information and maybe some psychology, one has to actively extract and apply. So first you have to observe it, be it reading or writing or seeing, and then you have to retroactively absorb that understanding and then apply it, right? And then through the application, you must be able to discuss that concept with another person, and ultimately a demonstration of mastery is to be able to teach it and explain it to someone in various levels, whether it's esoteric as heck, at the PhD level, or something using analogy like battle bands for working on decision making. Like I could illustrate proper decision making in a debate using the representation of a deck builder. There are actually games that you can play in diplomacy that deals with deck building. It's just a deck building itself. It's like a physical construct or a mental construct to allow one to piece together different steps in logic and in circuit making or feedback loops. And those things are very essential to life skills. That's only if the person is actively using video games. You can passively play video games, and that's usually from a coping standpoint. Does this game make you feel good? That's intuitive, right? Does it feel rewarding to play this game? You don't necessarily have to process any useful information out of it, or awareness or anything that profound. Often the vast majority of young adults nowadays play video games to feel good, to feel rewarded. That's a passive process that relies on intuition, not necessarily a active process that involves integrating both your emotional intelligence with your intellectual intelligence. And the entire goal of recording myself playing these games is to demonstrate to myself and to others, whoever's interested, how a person like me consumes video games actively alone. Because most of the time my dialogue and my thoughts are to myself. And then the idea is any of these habits can, through mere exposure of spectating, like if someone I know spectates me long enough, just through the mere exposure, it normalizes what you can do while you're playing games. So some would call that inspiration. And that's kind of the goal. I would like to inspire people to think like, usually before I start a game, I would spend 2.5 hours talking about my opening remarks regarding what my motivations are and what intrigues me about the game prior to playing a game. That exercise is automated for me after 30 plus years of gaming and utilizing the skill. For others, it's not quite clear. They skip that part. And it can be very beneficial to them, where it allows them to focus, find meaning in games, maybe newer meanings, something that can help them really oil out and squeeze the value of their time. Games can be both fun, educational, incredibly profound, even when it's a walking sim storytelling game, that kind of thing. It's an uphill battle, though. I see that that is a minority opinion, and I don't want it to be a minority opinion anymore. I want kids to younger kids to just be incredibly successful at just milking all their experiences. No more of that, I wasted my time on this video game, or this game is garbage, I'm gonna forget about it. It's more, this game is garbage, how would I improve it? What makes it garbage? How is, like, in what way and elements should I avoid next time? Or in what way should they, you know, should I look for to improve my video gaming experience? As opposed to one and done, wash your hands off of things. I finished this, now I can forget it kind of thing. It's a long-winded explainer, but that's kind of my mantra, I guess, for doing this kind of thing.